hold the president accountable for that initiative. And I think two of the biggest achievements that we will have is that he will not run for 2013 and he will not inherit power to his sons. I think this is a starting point that we should all hold together, whether on the opposition and whether on the ruling, and take the period from now on until 2013 as a transitional period for the implementation of these promises. If we see that there is no indication for these promises, then we can always work together and move forward together in order to assure that Yemen will move forward with democracy. And I think it is in the right of everybody to have democracy. And I do agree with the guest who said that 32 years is too long. I agree it is too long, but do we like to see? Can we prevent a scenario that happened in Egypt? And if ever there is a scenario in Yemen, what worries us all is that it might be a violent scenario. But we could work out a Yemeni scenario. A Yemeni scenario is to work out things from now until 2013. And of course, a lot of people would say, why don't we, I mean, how can we trust? We have seen it before and we haven't, nothing was delivered. Again, I do agree with them, but this time, let the street be a witness. And again, we can always count on our friends and the partners of Yemen to assure that the implementation of what the president said in his initiative will be implemented. I think this is a good starting point for all of us to rally behind it.
Abdul Razak Saleh, my next question is to you. Can a Yemeni scenario be worked out? Is the alternative too risky? The thing about Yemen is that there are all other factors coming into play. You've got the cessation of the south, problems in the north, threat of al-Qaeda, and then, of course, the internal problems that we've seen. Can you risk a complete regime change right now?
Well, I think the scenario is so clear. If the ruling family, I would call it not the government, not a regime, but it's a family. So if there are practical steps forward to assure people that they are serious of submitting power to the people, then they should stop killing protesters. They should stop arresting journalists. They should allow newspapers such as Al-Ayyam in Aden to be republished. So there must be some practical and serious steps forward in order for people to believe that the regime is serious about dialogue, is serious about giving power back to the people. Because if we talk about reforms, it's something that many Yemenis, I'm not saying all of them, but particularly in the south of Yemen, they don't believe it. They have been trying to negotiate. They have been proposing to the government since the war of summer 1994, after the civil war between South and North. But the regime has always rejected all solutions, and they have rejected all mediation between the different fractions within Yemen itself. So what I am saying is that now is the time to listen to the people. The regime has been given a golden opportunities to reform. It has been given the opportunity to assure people that they are serious to develop and eradicate poverty and unemployment, and also to get rid of the terrorists. The regime has not kept to its promises. So let me now put this to Sheikh Mohammed Abulaham.
Is the regime serious about change, as Abdul Razak Saleh has been saying, and is it willing to implement the changes that Abdul Razak Saleh has been talking about?
Again, I believe we have a very small space, even for the regime, to give any other promises. Now is the time to deliver. And I do agree that the regime has to deliver immediately. And I would hope that the president would take a serious initiative and be ahead of everybody else and take a serious initiative, whether in toppling some corrupted individuals, whether laying out the foundation for from now until 2013. But again, just to go back to one very important point about the violence. Personally, I do condemn the use of violence, and always, whoever uses the violence is not a sign of strength, but rather a sign of weakness. So we should all work together, and I think what Yemen needs right now, it does not need that people should take positions in this side or that side. All people should, we should all try to work together, get Yemen out of this mess, and move Yemen into the next level. The next level is bringing Yemen into democracy, bringing Yemen into a better future. And let's work for, I mean, after all, what we see, the youth that are demonstrating on the streets, these individuals and youth, these are the hopes of the future. So we have to work together. Let's try not to have any more bloodshed and try to implement what we can do for a better future for the youth and for all of us in Yemen.
Zaki Shihab, you've heard two sides there. You've heard the protesters' voice to a certain extent, and you've also heard that the government is taking certain initiatives and does not want the violence to continue. But if the protesters do not accept the government's initiatives, where do you see this going?
Yeah, practically what I can see that the president is looking seriously about what has been happening in other parts of the Arab world. To see him like opening the doors of his palace for tribal elders to come around, to talk to him, to raise their concerns. You know, the promises that he will not run after 2013, not to pass the presidency or any kind of governance to his sons. That's really very, very important issues which the opposition in Yemen have been calling for. I think the situation is now different. The opposition also, you know, the kind of speeches they are talking about, they're reserved about being involved directly in the demonstration reflects that the sensitivity of the situation in Yemen, which is, I think, is a very responsible act by the opposition. We do hope that the president also take forward whatever he have promised the last few days in terms of trying to give the masses who've been demonstrating in the streets of Aden, streets of Sana'a, even in Taiz, which is very, very important to be taken seriously, because any other steps, it would lead to more violence and more bloodshed. We have to remember that the situation in Yemen, not like any other Arab country. There are tribal system there, and most of the loyalty of the people there for their tribes. So that's why it's so important. We are not talking about mass movement who have ideas, things. Definitely, the young generation who's looking for reforms, democracy, more freedom of speech. People have the right to say whatever they want in like any other manners in the rest of the world. I'm sure it's must, and the government has to respect this and to take actions to make this work. I'm sure the kind of phone calls, messages by the friends of the president from Washington to other capitals carried very, very clear messages that demonstrators should be carry their demonstration in a peaceful way, not to be attacked. I know that at this stage the government is not getting involved directly with trying to confront demonstrators by weapon, but they are using the civil face of the army or the police to try to disperse demonstration, which is like a step. The president knows exactly what does it mean if he wants to take it further in the future.
Abdul Razak Saleh, what do you have to say to that? Is our demonstrators being treated fairly, and should the West be doing more to weigh in on the fact that there's so much violence?
I think the protesters have been treated harshly. I mean, we've heard the number of killing in Aden and